Ladies and gentlemen, the train will leaving. Just be careful and be seated well. In many travel guides have been mentioned that if you travel to Stockholm, you need to take the subway once. Yes, maybe there are some people who go to work by subway every day. To them, the subway feels familiar. If you know the history of the subway, you will know that Sweden is not the first country in the world to have a subway. The first city in the world to have a subway is London. The first city in Europe to have the subway is in Budapest. Why need we take the subway once in Sweden? In fact, many times the first one to appear is not the most distinctive. The appearance of the subway was originally due to the rapid increase in population, the rapid development of the city, and the large-scale use of automobiles, resulting in traffic congestion on the ground. At that time, people conceived, can a road be built underground? This is the original thinking of the earliest subway. There are two words in English, metro and subway. Metro is mainly used in British English. This word comes from the word metropolitan, which means big city, because the subway is often built in big cities and then used the name. Of course, many friends from Beijing and Shanghai may often go to Metro supermarket. Metro is a group of Germany. It's just a coincidence. So, no one translates Metro supermarket as the name of a subway supermarket. But if you are in London, the subway officially called Underground Rail or the Tube because it's the rain in the underground. The word subway is mostly used in North America. Sub means attached, small. The way is a road, and then the meaning is extra way. If in Sweden, walks on the street, and you can see the board with the big letter T everywhere. What does it mean? In fact, many friends have already guessed. That is the sign of a Swedish subway. As long as you go to see such a sign on the street, you can find the subway, just like Italy. When you see a big English letter M on it, the sign is the subway station. If you see the M outside on the top of the house, it must be McDonald's. The sign for a Swedish subway station is this big letter T. The full name is Tunnelbana, which is also composed of the two words. Tunnel means tunnel. Bana means track or path. And the track in the tunnel, then comes the word Tunnelbana. Why does the Swedish subway stations use these words as the name of a subway? That is because of the particularity of the urban terrain structure. The surface is rocky, and rocky is full of all the surface. There is very little soft land, which brings great difficulty to the urban have constructions for the city, especially the construction of subways. The reason for mining is main resources before in Stockholm, which reminds people to think that Nobel's invention of nitroglycerin explosive just used for the solving of mining and road rocky construction. However, Sweden's agricultural cultivation is relatively insufficient, and a large number of fruits and vegetables are imported. This is also determined by the terrain environment. In addition, the capital of Sweden is not a piece of land, but a small island and a small island. There are many lakes around the island. The total island is 14 in Stockholm. If you want to build a subway among the 14 islands, you must dig a tunnel in that rocky land. So, the subway was becoming a real train in the tunnel in Stockholm. The idea for building a subway in Sweden started in 1920s, while the world's first subway was built in England in 1863. This is mainly due to the density of the population. For example, the current population of the United Kingdom is about 67 million, and the population of Sweden is only 10 million. A difference is nearly 7 times. At the very beginning of the 20th century, London's population had reached 5 million, while then the Stockholm's population was only 500,000. The population amount is 10 times different. At present, the UK subway transports 1.2 billion passengers every year, and the Swedish subway transports 300 million passengers, and Beijing subway transport volume is 2.3 billion passengers. At the very beginning of the 20th century, in 1920, Sweden saw that other countries were building subways, so they also wanted to build their own subways. Sweden's first subway was built in 1933 at a station in the South Island. According to many sources, the first railway in Stockholm was built in 1950 at the current station of Slussen in the city center. In 1950, the old king Gustav V participated in the opening ribbon-cutting ceremony. That year, he was 92 years old. Gustav V is the descendant of Gustav, the first king of Sweden, and the great-grandfather of the current king, Carl XVI. There were 2 world wars in the world during King Gustav V times, but Sweden remained neutral in both. The Swedish subway has reached 105 kilometers and has nearly 100 stations. It will be extended more 30 kilometers in the next few years. The Swedish subway is not the longest subway in the world, compared to the longest subway in Shanghai, which subway is 830 kilometers long. And Stockholm is only 1/8 of it long. The first subway in Shanghai was completed in 1993, 6 years after Stockholm's first subway built. If you come to Sweden to take the subway, you may accidentally get a subway that is from the cabin of 50 years ago. Yes, there are about 200 old subway trains in Stockholm. They are still running. They were all products of the 1970s. When you're getting on the train and going through the tunnel, seems like to have a time-traveling feeling, taking you directly into the world of 50 years ago. Most of the seats in Swedish subway cabin are woven soft-seat sofa seats, which are very comfortable to sit on, and the arrangement is horizontal, unlike some subway cars which are arranged vertically. Many trains in the Swedish subway are produced by Sweden's ABB and the German's Daimler-Benz company. The maximum speed of the train is 90 km per hour, and the average speed has reached 60 km per hour. ABB is a joint venture between Sweden and Switzerland. It is a joint venture between the Swedish General Electric Company, Allmänna Sveriges Elektriska Återföretaget, and the Swiss Brown Boveri Company. Each company holds 50% of the shares. The company's main industry including rubber, automatic, trains, and transformers. In terms of a subway construction, there are several methods that are often used. One is the dig and cover method, which lower cost and less technical content, as well as cover and excavation method. For example, the first subway in Beijing in 1970 used digging and covering method. First digging the ground from the surface, and finally backfilling the soil in the subway. This method is relatively simple, but requires geological structure to be dominated by soil. And the geological structure of Stockholm is dominated by rocks. So, this method is obviously not good. Sweden can only use the mining method. That is, use some blasting method to open the cross-section of the underground rock, so as to combine other methods to build the underground railway. This kind of subway construction is more difficult. In terms of subway safety, the Swedish subway needs to do more work, especially Stockholm is surrounded by lakes, such as Slussen station. The sea level is higher than the ground, so when designing and constructing, it is necessary to exclude this kind of the danger of the water entering the subway. In addition, it is necessary to design fireproof and shockproof work. Almost all subways in Stockholm have no protective glass wall, so it is easy to cause pushing incident. But fortunately, in the past 70 years of operation, there are very few extrusion incidents. Besides, the convenience of a Stockholm metro is also good. First of all, at the entrance of the subway station, there are many small supermarkets for commuters to buy some simple breakfast and necessities. And there are also service windows in various subways. But in many cases, there is no luggage security check facilities at the entrance of the subway, which is a certain hidden danger to some extent. Maybe someone will ask how to buy subway tickets. In fact, to buy tickets can basically be at the window or in the mobile app. Now, almost all bank cards in Sweden are associated with the subway. Just use the bank card to enter the subway station is okay, which is very convenient. In terms of fares, the Swedish subway is 39 kronor, equal to RMB 28 per trip. But it can be used underground together with the bus, which means that if you buy a card, you can use it for the underground transportation, and the time is within 75 minutes. At the same time, Stockholm also implements a monthly pass system. The monthly pass is 960 kronor, equal to RMB 700 per month. The careful friend come to Sweden to take the subway, they will find that they need to swipe their card when they enter the subway, but no need to swipe their card when they're leaving the subway. The largest station on the Stockholm subway is Stockholm Center Station. The Center Station has 7 floors, which the subway in Beijing has 3 floors. In other words, there are trains passing by at any time in the underground of the 7 floors, which can be described as a real underground spider web.
这个站呢，就是 T Center， 也就是市中心最中心的一个站啊，也是一个交通的枢纽在这里。平时上下班的时候人特别的多啊，那到现在呢，人不是很多。
In terms of service equipment, Almost every subway station in Sweden has elevators or escalators for disabled people. However, there are no supporting facilities for the disabled within 6 meters in Beijing subway. Many were added later. When I arrived at the center station of Stockholm, I saw that there are many entrances here, and some subway stations even have more than 10 entrances and exits.
那它这个出口呢也非常的多，出口大概我数了一下，应该有至少在12个出口，所以很容易到这边迷路的。啊，有的时候坐1次2次呢，根本就找不着方向。
It's very easy to evacuate and save time for exiting and entering the station. What also needs to be mentioned is that the subway in Stockholm is directly connected to the railway station in Stockholm, which can be said to be seamless link. You can go to the train without leaving the subway station, which is very convenient. In addition, the train in Sweden is open. You don't need to swipe your card before entering the station, but you can get on the train directly. You should buy ticket from your EPP first. So, why do we have to experience the Stockholm subway once when you come to Sweden? That is because a lot of artistic elements have been incorporated in the subway since the very beginning. At each station of the subway, there are works of art carved or paintings made by artists, which can be described as one picture at the station. Entering the subway station of Stockholm, you can see these works of art just like entering a world of underground art centers. People who are tired for commuting in the subway can enjoy the works of art while taking the subway, and they can also relieve the fatigue of work. Among this design, some of the most worthwhile subway stations are Kunstträdgården, T-Centralen, Rådhuset, Fridhemsplan, Västerskogen, Näckrosen, Lisna, Solna strand, Linkeby, Tensta, Solna, Tekniska högskolan, Stadion, Universitet. Each stop has its own characteristics. If you want to say which stop is the most worthwhile, it is the King's Garden stop. The stop is actually the ruin of the palace in the 1630s. The owner of the palace was Job della Gardie. At that time, the palace was high as 5 floors, richly decorated and has picture platform, as well as a gallery for paintings, etc. The local call the palace Macalus. Later, after the owner's death, his widow went to another palace and left it as an arsenal. At the time, King Gustav III got it as a Royal Dramatic Theatre, later known as the Arsenal Theatre. But in 1825, a fire broke out during the platform. Although people were evacuated, 3 employees were unfortunately dead, and the building was severely damaged. Many stone carvings have been preserved, and others have been sent to museum. For example, the Nordic Museum can still see the cultural relics left there. In the central station in Sweden, many famous people have also visited here. It was built by blasting tunnel mining, which generally preserved the structure and the natural environment of the rock.
好，我现在坐到了这个地铁上啊，还有大概2分钟就发车了。
As if being a primitive cave, some kind of it like a scientific movie. On the rocks of the station, olive branches are painted all over, and the blue paintings feel fresh and natural. And people always feel like in a natural museum. Sweden is a country that has hosted the Olympic Games twice, both 1912 and 1956.
这个是个反光镜，这个反光镜根据太阳呢不同的时间，这里是自动的，就把这个光线呢打到这个过道，打到这里，这样的话呢就可以节约用电。
In other subway stations, there are also designs such as stone, sculpture, oil painting, chimney, ships, planet, characters, flowers, plants, rainbow, etc. It is really amazing. All in all, the subway in Stockholm is a palace of art. Even if you have taken the subway thousands of times, even if you have been the subway in many different places, you can only feel the artistic style of the Stockholm subway when you come to Sweden. You will have a different new realization for the subway. Stockholm's subway, an art palace that is more than a museum.